just doing some work up at Andy's, a bit of running around, so time for some fresh air, a wee bit of exercise, ease the back a bit. Wind's a bit too west, southwest, but get some fresh air. Probably a few wee bits to untangle. Just keep checking the airspace every 30 seconds, thereabouts. Get a wee bit of air into it.
Okay, so here I'm wanting to move to my left, so I'm using direct roll control on the wing to get the wing to take me to where I want to go, so it's not using brakes. Main control, as always, is the harness. And we're in relatively light wind conditions, so the small amount of brakes here is simply to alter the pitch of the wing and control the airspeed. Here I'm adding in thrust, so that's physically with the harness, moving position, as always harness control, giving extra thrust, giving me a zoom climb, and then you'll get the dive as drag produces the pilot being below behind the wing, and the aim is to land on top of the rail, so you've got to balance the thrust.
Again, keep checking. Sort of up on the big sights, you could be a hang glider overshooting coming in low, so you always keep checking the airspace, not just in front of a ridge. Afternoon. Just having a wee play, been giving a friend a hand down at this end of the town. And the overall forecast is not worth heading up the hills, so
once again here I'm starting with the wing approximately above me by adding in thrust in the harness, pilot moving forwards. You get zoom climb and follows a dive as drag on the pilot will position you below and behind the wing, so the aim is the dive is minimal onto the top of the railing and then tiptoeing to the top, standing on the single post. The only reason for the brakes here is I'm deliberately degrading the glide, what would normally be referred to as so-called minimum sink. It actually makes the glider less efficient, because at the moment I don't want to fly forwards with efficiency, I want to just float down, land near the grass. With the wind veering, so it's going in this case more to the west, we've got less vertical component for any wind speed, because instead of coming straight up the ridge, not that ever was today, it's more from the side, so it's just making it a little bit harder to get that zoom climb up. There's less actual lift there to be added to the lift I get from the temporary thrust of the pilot moving the harness forward relatively. So after the zoom climb and dive to land on the top of the railing, tiptoeing along, and then standing just with my right toe on top of that ball on the post. Using quite a bit of harness control, just moving about within the balance, so you're leaning left, right, back, forward, whatever's needed against the risers, with tiny touches of brakes, and again I've degraded the efficiency of the glider by adding on brakes because I want to land right next to the grass and then backtracking.
To be honest, it's more the direction. Back in the 70s, I'd be going out for 10 hours sailing, but still got a boat, but it's not been on the water for a couple of years, haven't had time. But yeah, the direction, I mean, that's probably about 50-60 degrees off the slope now. But down at this end of the town doing a favour for a friend. In today's overall forecast, it's not worth burning a tenner's worth of fuel to head up to the big flying sites. So come down and have a wee bit fresh air and exercise. Best flight I've ever had here is about 20 minutes for one continuous flight, but technical. That said, flew 7 hours about a month ago along at the ridge near the harbour. That was 3 flights, 7 hours. It was just cracking conditions. It's more about being lazy, to be honest. The less you do, the more you achieve. It's like sailing. I mean, I used to go out sailing when I was I started when I was about, I was pre-teen anyway, say about 10, 11. But I would go out solo on the Wayfarer, full racing rig, go out for 10 hours at a time. It's about being efficient, being lazy. Don't fight it, dance with it. See ya.
So once again here, just a little backtrack. Tiny touches brakes, mainly the harness. But the main aim is to add in energy, thrust, giving zoom climb and aiming to time the dive so you just land on top of the railing. Remembering that in flight the pilot always is below and slightly behind the glider. Then balancing on that pole, single toe, tiny bits of brakes but mainly the harness. Can you lean and then off. Now here I'm deliberately removing efficiency for the glider, so I've got brakes on both sides and then yawing the wing round, because again this sort of flying tight close quarters here, you're not actually wanting to stay up if it's not soarable and end up way out over the water. Glide there, if I was to fly efficient, say maybe get 15-20 feet out. So you're wanting to land on the beach, and again mainly the harness but wee bits of brake, mainly both sides to change the pitch, to get the wing to take me back and up sideways up the path, and then you'll see a wee zoom climb just up onto the pole,
Sand on the
railings, and
cyclists almost certainly cutting along the walking cycle path. Yep.
once again this is mainly harness control. It's got very little to do with any brakes. So I'm using the harness to roll the wing right, so the wing takes me where I want to go, and again I'm going to stop the wing taking me right by using the harness. Same as on launching, position the wing above, to my left and slightly ahead of me so that the flight would start in the direction I wanted, and once again using inefficient brakes, so adding in the so-called normal sort of minimum sink position, so I was sinking down to land safely on the beach. Again, harness control doing most of the work to get me back up over the railing and onto the grass. So almost everything is about the harness, very little is about the brake. So here you can see quite clearly in the picture, wing is rolled to my right, so wing rolled right. Again here I'm going to use thrust, zoom climb, dive, land on the top. Almost all flying should be about the harness, very little should be about the brakes. Again, degrading the glide, making it inefficient by adding in 6 to 8 inches of brake. harness in the lean helps with the yaw and a wee bit differential brake. Once again, using the harness, brakes are really just increasing the pitch of the wing a bit, positioning the wing above and slightly behind me, and then the roll to once again do all the work
the direction more than anything else. It's
and take me up in the direction I want to go. So I'm leaning to my left as the wing pulls me right, giving me traction against the fence, and again keeping the roll in, keeping the roll in, keeping the roll in. The wing takes me where I want.
Yep. Wait. Getting a bit trickier.
Yeah, it's tricky with the wind.
It's the direction. But today with the forecast, it's not worth heading up the hills and burning a tenner's worth of fuel to get to a good site. We're down this end of the town anyway to do a few favours for a friend. So come and play instead. And with the best direction from here, you go from there. But obviously you've got to stay out the flower beds. But it's very west compared to the ideal for this. See, back in the 70s, we'd be out here sailing for 10 hours at a time. But a month ago, the cracking day, I was actually meant to be down to do some work, but the weather was so good, I thought. So flew 7 hours in 3 flights, and I was only landing for photo shoots and chatting to folks and stuff. 7 hours and 3 flights along next to the docks. But this one, the record I've done here, longest flight I've had here is 20 minutes. It's very, very technical, very small area. Obviously got to keep an eye out for everybody. But yeah, a bit of fresh air. Yeah, better. Oh yeah. Ideally the wind would be about another 45 degrees round. Somebody order a parasol? Sunshade? Yes, I was just saying to the folks, the direction's not ideal. What can I say? This is why I get pilots coming from all over the world to retrain with me. Lazy and efficient. You dance with it, don't fight it.
So once again, once I'm balanced up on top of the railing, the vast amount of the control is not the brake handle you can occasionally see there. It's actually me leaning against the risers. So effectively you're leaning against the wing to position the mass and the wing such a way that it does all the work, degrading the glide, making it inefficient, so I land on the beach rather than fly out to the water.
Again, keep checking the airspace. Okay, so we've got the cyclist coming along. Second cyclist. Third cyclist. No, I'm just playing. If you had enough height, it would be possible, but to be honest, you would never do it when there's actually wind. These aren't particularly efficient into wind. So if you're flying downwind, you could certainly fly a couple of miles over water. I wouldn't do it into wind though, not safe.
Once again, I'm using the harness control, not really any brakes to speak of, to roll the wing, to get the wing to take me where I want to go. And the same thing, harness control will again give me that zoom climb, dive to land on top of the railing. All about the harness. Keep checking the airspace as well, of course. Now it's quite handy to note here that as well as using the direct harness control, once I've got the wing rolled, I've also kept turned in the harness, so it is harness control, effectively looking towards the wing, and that keeps it down. So rather than fighting with brakes, if you want to roll the wing back up, you look away from the wing. Changing at the harness, harness control gets it back level, and again, harness control there. So the brake handle you can see on the right hand, the left hand brake would be about the same because it's actually pitch controlling the wing. So having both brakes on there is not to yaw the wing, it's not to drag me across anything like that. All the controls done with the harness. Having both brakes on simply alters the pitch of the wing to allow me to not move forwards or too much brake, not move backwards in the wind.
Good afternoon. Too easy. Well, it's a bit more fun and a bit more challenging when it's high tide. This is too easy when you've got landing options. Airspace as usual. Always remember, human can see much wider angle, including up and down, than the camera picks up. So this particular one is 21 years old. I must like them, I bought 9 of them. New, this would have been 2,800 odds. So.
As always, almost all of this is done with the harness control. So once again, when you see one brake, you can virtually guarantee the other brake at the moment is set to about the same position and they're not altering for the whole of the move there. So as I use the harness to roll the wing and the harness to recover roll the wing, I'm really not altering the brakes, they're just simply holding the pitch to suit the wind speed and the direction. Again, setting off the takeoff so that I fly the direction I want to go. So effectively the flight direction there was 70-80% off the wind. And just holding it here again with the harness, hands free. Just holding with the harness, holding with the harness. So at the end of the day here, I'm using a small, smooth amount of safety risers In this case it's the C riser, the back risers it's a 3 riser glider, but mainly to get the wing to settle down there I was using the harness, hence the fact it settles down slowly, unsmoothly, without any drag.